They do plan to enter your home to kill you, but they do always knock first. So they're not completely mannerless. Back in my day, high school girls were not akin to goddesses of ancient Greece. You know, like they had acne and then tried to cover up the acne with foundation that turned their faces orange. And they wore pants that said juicy across the ass. Hello. In my last video, I reviewed all of the previous best novel winners of the Splatterpunk Awards. So in today's video, I would like to review most of the best novella winners of the Splatterpunk Awards since 2018. Now, here's where our little hiccup is. Unfortunately, there is one that we will not be reviewing today, and that is actually the winner from 2018, which is Header 3 by Edward Lee and Ryan Harding. Now, as you can tell from the title, it's called Header 3 because it is the third book in a series. I was struggling really trying to figure out how I was gonna try to cover this book, if I was going to read the first two and just also talk about those, even though they weren't part of the winners, or if I was gonna read all three and just not talk about the first two. That seemed a little bit weird, and I really struggled trying to figure out how to review this story within the context of this video. So in the end, I decided that considering the fact that there's 3 books, I think you would get a better quality review of that story if it was done in the context of the first 2 as well. And plus also, apparently there's a movie for Header 1. So that's the one that I will not be including today. But what I will do is just give you kind of a brief idea of what it's about. The description for Header 3 is really vague. I can put it up on the screen if you want to read it, but without any previous knowledge of the first 2, I don't think it's going to mean a whole lot to you. It didn't mean much to me. But what I can do is give you a brief description of Header 1. Header 1 is about these 2 different men. You have a guy named Agent Stewart, who works for the ATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. So they are the dudes that are trying to prevent and investigate crimes related to those things. And there is another dude named Travis, who is an ex-con. The agent starts going through some financial troubles. His wife is unwell, and it's a huge financial burden on them as a family. He starts to traffic drugs in order to make money for his family. And the ex-con, it just sort of says that he gets out and then reunites with Pappy. And Pappy is a mentor of sorts, but not in a particularly wholesome way. And so you have this Pappy mentoring Travis, who's already an ex-con, and somehow apparently the lives of Travis the ex-con and Agent Stewart the agent come together, and there's a story there. So I imagine Header 3 is a continuation of that story. Apologies if you are disappointed that that review is not included. But if I remember, and I don't know that I will, but I'll try, that when I do that video, then I'll try to remember to come back and include a link to the other video in the description. So if you're watching this like a year from now, then look in the description. Maybe the other video is linked there. Maybe not. Who's to say? Okay, so our 2019 winner is Kill for Satan, with exclamation point. Kill for Satan by Bryan Smith. So this story takes place the night before Halloween. There is a subset of the population in this town that are a cult. And so, as cults often are, they are really stoked about Halloween because they're like, you know what we want to do? We're going to have our monthly meeting, but it's going to be special because it's Halloween. So you might be wondering, what does this cult do at their regular monthly meetings. It entails a sacrifice ceremony, which includes a non-willing participant, and a giant orgy to celebrate afterwards. How could they possibly make it even better, you're wondering? Well, the thing that makes this night special is that the devil joins them. It's like this whole time, every month they've been throwing a party for Satan, but he's never shown up for his own party. And he finally showed up for the party that they've been throwing for him every month. Satan just has this thing, similar to God. Something that they have in common is that they both are just really obsessed with virgins. And Satan's like, I would like you guys, all my culty people who worship me, I want you to go out on this Halloween night and kill as many virgins as you can, because those guys. I will help you by putting this effect on them where they will shimmer, so you'll know, because people lie, right? So you'll know if they are a virgin or not. You won't have to trust what they say, and you should just go out and kill them. But don't worry, it doesn't count if they're itty bitties. They have to be adults. They have to have reached, or maybe not adults, but they have to have reached sexual maturity. So they have to be teenagers at least. They'll give you examples in the book of different virgins that are attacked, right? And it's not like all these people are virtuous, right? Like you might have someone who's virtuous, but you might have another person who's just an incel and actually a terrible person. So it has nothing to do with their character or being religious or anything like that. It's just something about not getting boned that just really ticks the devil off, I guess. I don't know. It would make more sense to me if it was a virtue thing. I'm not sure why the devil cares about that without that context. You know. I like this story just fine. I think it's the type of story that there is a lack of emotional investment, and due to that fact, it is a fun, enjoyable read, but it's not really the type of story that's gonna stick with you. Okay, our 2020 winner is One for the Road by Wesley Southard. I would like to be very upfront and just let you know that this will not be a glowing review, but that is not because the story is poorly written. I want to be very clear about that. This is a matter of personal preference. So as I am criticizing this book, I want to be very clear that that is what is at the core of my issue. Is it just didn't fit my personal preferences. I am not saying it's poorly written. I'm not saying it is a bad story or anything like that. It just wasn't my cup of tea. The fact that this wasn't my cup of tea was rather disappointing to me, because if you're not new here, then you know I really do enjoy some surrealism. I really like bizarro and surreal storytelling, which are things that are in this story. So I was kind of disappointed that I didn't like it more. But the thing is I just hated these characters so much that it distracted me from all the parts that I would normally enjoy. The plot, there is one, and I read about it. So we have a band called Rotten Hell. That is the name of the band. Our main character is a dude named Spencer, who is in this band. They just finished touring, and Spencer is just super stoked because he is just chomping at the bit to leave the band, but he had to wait for their tour to be over. He had to wait for their tour to be over. So now that it is, the van is getting ready to bring them home, and Spencer falls asleep. When Spencer wakes up, their tour bus or van or whatever is just in the middle of the desert. So the bus or whatever broke down. They look to the back of the van, and all of their equipment, their instruments, everything is missing. And it's like, what goes on here. They see a small town in the distance and they decide to go to it. And that is where everything gets real weird. Up until this point, it's just kind of seems normal-ish. But they go to the town and there's lots of weird stuff going on in the town. But Spencer, everybody, it's not just like, oh, I didn't like the main character. Everybody in this story is the worst person that you've ever met in your life. They are just terrible, terrible people with no redeeming qualities. I have read stories with unlikable characters and still liked the story. I do think that when that's the case, you are climbing a bit of an uphill battle. You know, it does make it harder for people to connect, but it's not impossible. However, everything that bothers me in particular, one of my biggest turnoffs in a human being is just that inflated ego, that sense of self-importance, the hypocrisy of acting like you're superior to somebody else when you're literally engaging in the same exact behavior. And the fact that nobody's behavior ever gets checked by anybody who doesn't also suck, so it's meaningless. Like, it's meaningless when they check each other because they're all doing the same thing and they're all terrible. There's like this groupie chick who is dating the lead singer and he is super abusive to her. She is sleeping around with other people. She's constantly pestering Spencer. Spencer's acting like she is a bug on the bottom of his shoe, but he is also sleeping with her. Like, and being abusive to her, just like slightly less than her boyfriend is, and then acting like he has some sort of moral superiority to the lead singer because he was like slightly less terrible, but you're still like, oh my gosh. Like, I hated these characters so much. I found no redeeming qualities and it distracted me from anything that I would normally enjoy. I don't know. I just couldn't. I couldn't get past it, and it got to the point where I listened to this. I guess I forgot to mention that. I listened to the audio version of this, which was narrated by John Wayne Communal. I don't know. I normally see an unlikable character for what they are and still look past that to enjoy the story, but I just, for some reason with this one, I just, like, I hated I hated all of these characters. I had nobody to root for, and I don't know. I just didn't enjoy listening to it for that reason. Like, I just didn't care. I wanted them all to perish. I wanted them all to perish very badly, and I didn't care about them trying to survive this chaotic experience because I didn't want them to survive. This was a frustrating read for me. Or listen, I should say. But that being said, it is only like a 2.5 hour listen. Maybe I'll try again at some point. Going into it, not looking for any value from the characters and just try to maybe listen to the stuff in the town. I don't want to spoil that part because I think that is the part that most people would like. If you like weird surreal stuff like I do and you don't get so hung up on the characters the way I did, you would probably enjoy this story. I just wanted them to die. I didn't want to see their story continue. I would have been more interested on the ongoings of the town surrounding their dead bodies. I do not think that most people who already enjoy this genre would struggle with that to the degree in which I did. Oh, that was passionate. All right. Our 2021 winner is True Crime by Samantha Kolosnick. Now this, on the other hand, I absolutely loved. I thought this was fantastic. I will say, going into this, that this is not your standard splatterpunk book. This is more in line with something like The Girl Next Door, where it's not over the top gory or over the top violent or anything like that, but it kind of just fits into the genre considering the subject matters themselves are very disturbing. So it's kind of in that vein. So we have our main character, Susie, who has an older brother, Lynn. We start off our story where they are living with their abusive mother. Their mother very much comes across as somebody who enjoys mistreating them, enjoys taking advantage of them, enjoys her power that she has over her children. Due to events that happen, they get away from their mother. The story mostly focuses on Susie. You see these two very damaged people who don't know how to be anything else, who don't really have a lot of resources and a lot of help. And then even when help is standing right in front of them, they don't really know how to accept it. It's kind of a survival story, but not in a sense of like trying to survive in the woods. It's more about just trying to survive in your own head. You're seeing the results of poverty and trauma and abuse, being more at peace and more comfortable around people who mistreat you, because in your brain they are showing you the truth of how they feel, and people who are kind are possibly liars or manipulating you, and you would rather be with someone showing you the truth. You don't see generosity or kindness as something that isn't without ulterior motives. This is a little bit hard to talk about without giving any spoilers away. I know this isn't really a spoiler because this isn't a major plot point in the book, so this isn't, There's this part, they go to a sort of carnival type thing, and there's this section with animal freak show, and it shows these pigs who, like, one of them's missing a leg. They're all mutilated in some way, and Susie's looking at them, and she can tell by the one pig's little stump that it used to have a leg, that somebody, presumably somebody, mutilated this pig and cut off its leg so that it could be a part of this freak show, is what is implied. This scene of her just looking at these pigs and the other people who are at this freak show just laughing at them, just laughing at these weird pigs that aren't quite right and how amusing it is. And it's a powerful moment in the book because it shows the difference between a relatively healthy person's mindset versus somebody like Susie. Some people would look at that and they would want to rescue the pigs, and they would want to rescue them and treat them well and give them a nice life or bring them to a sanctuary or something. They would feel pity and they would want to protect them. Susie, she wants to kill the pigs, to put them out of their misery, and to make sure that nobody can ever laugh at them again. It's a small scene, but it's very impactful. So this is not your standard splatterpunk experience, but it is a very good story. It is a very heavy read. There's some beautifully written lines. I'll put them up. There's this other female character in the book who is a very traditionally feminine woman. How Susie reacts to her, she clearly has a resentment for this other woman's softness. There's a line in there, something about, if survival of the fittest was real, this woman would have been dead years ago. How is it that this woman was protected in such a way that she was able to keep her softness? And then there's somebody like Susie who has just been abused and mistreated her entire life and has had no choice but to harden herself and put armor around herself, which she tries to present to the reader as just sort of this disgust for this other woman. Kind of, as the reader, I think you see it for the resentment and the jealousy that it is that she wasn't allowed that same opportunity. How come this woman got to have such a soft life and I didn't? There's a bitterness to it. You just see these very, as she's written throughout the story, these very kind of muted emotions, clearly as a result of everything that she's been through. I mean, how would you survive if you didn't push down all your hurt and your pain? Like, she didn't have the luxury of not doing that. I would say overall, it was my favorite read of the novellas. Okay, next up, our 2022 winner is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by LaRocca. I listened to the audio version of this. It was narrated by Lori Catherine Winkle. I read Eric LaRocca once before. I read At Dark I Become Loathsome, and I really enjoyed it. So what I know about Mr. LaRocca is that he appears to be a very character-driven author, and that was definitely the case with this story as well. This entire story takes place through the lens of instant messaging between these two women. We have a lady, Agnes, who is trying to sell an apple peeler online. This is not an ordinary apple peeler. This is an antique apple peeler that at one point in time was allegedly held by a man of significance. I don't remember what celebrity it was, but some dude who matters to some people held this apple peeler at one point. So it has this amazing history to it, you know. Does she go to a place like eBay to sell her apple peeler? Absolutely not. She is going to go to a website. Hang on. What was it? Yeah, it's a queer internet forum. But as strange as that may seem, she does get a bite from a woman named Zoe. So that is the thing that sparks these two women talking. She finds out through talking to Agnes that she's only selling this antique apple peeler because her family cut her off for being gay and she's having a hard time paying rent. She's just hard up for money, and if she wasn't, she wouldn't be selling this apple peeler. And Zoe, being the stranger that she is like, I'll just send you money to pay your rent, to help you out, because that is a completely normal thing for a stranger online to do. I think most people would be pretty sketched out if they met someone online and they immediately offered to send them money to pay for their rent. Agnes does accept. It kind of starts this very kind of dom-sub relationship between the two, where Zoe will give orders to Agnes, and at first they're things that are not that big of a deal. It would be like something like, oh, don't wear any underwear when you go to work, stuff like that, which ultimately doesn't have any real consequence to it, but you might get a little bit of a sexual thrill out of it. But eventually her orders do become increasingly up. They never meet in person. All of this is just taking place online, and so she's giving her orders online, and then Agnes is following through on these orders even though she doesn't want to sometimes. And it becomes very clear that Agnes is not just enjoying some sort of sexual kink. She is not just a submissive person. She is mentally unwell. There's such simplicity to this that I personally really enjoyed. I enjoy a character-driven story when the characters are interesting and complex, which these were. I did think it was kind of funny because honestly, I guess it seems unusual within the context of lesbians, but at one point, Zoe is making this offer to Agnes of what sort of relationship she would like to have with her. And while it would be a little bit extreme, basically she just sort of describes a standard relationship of a woman with a man. Like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. And it's just like, I want to be in control of the money and I want you to listen to me. And it's like, well, that's just sort of like a traditional straight relationship. And I'm not saying that it's good or bad. It's just funny that it's a bit extreme, but within a straight relationship would be seen as less extreme, if that makes sense. It's one of those stories that kind of, it lures you in because it doesn't start off being crazy, right? Like it starts off being kind of inane, like, oh, don't wear underwear today. And then the next thing you know, you're just doing some crazy stuff. And then when it becomes clear that Agnes is unwell, then you see how Zoe responds to that. And I think that there is a lot of complexity in the way that Zoe responds, and it could be interpreted. It's kind of open to interpretation what her response signifies or what it means. And I guess just the last thing that I'll say about this story is that I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the simplicity of the premise. I just wish that the very ending had had a little bit more impact. I liked the way it ended in general. The execution of it just didn't have quite the punch that I think it possibly could have. Okay, next up we have our 2023 winner, which is Plastic Monsters by Daniel J. Volpe. Now, I heard the other day somebody pronounced that man's last name as Volpe, so I think it is very possible that I have been mispronouncing it this entire time. I don't remember who it was, but I'm going to give that person the benefit of the doubt that they said it correctly. So, Plastic Monsters by Daniel J. Volpe. It's reasonable that I would think it was just Volpe, right? Like that's reasonable that I thought that, but it's still wrong, I believe, from what I can tell. I don't know. I'd said that overall, true crime was my favorite story out of what I read for this video. This, though, I would say was my favorite in terms of what I would consider a more standard splatterpunk book. So if you are looking for a more, what most people think of when they think of splatterpunk, I liked this a lot. So this is about a woman named Pam, who is a big fat loser back in high school, and she gets just bullied and made fun of a whole lot. Her boobs suck. Children screaming, crying into the night. What? Her boobs suck, which is a point of contention for her throughout her life. It's not like they started to suck when she got old. They've always sucked. She's never had the chest that she wished she did. We fast forward in time. So she's 38 now, and the way that she has coped with all of this baggage from her youth and the bullying that she experienced is that she has dedicated her entire life. Everything about her life is dedicated to being as attractive as possible, being more attractive than the women around her. There's nothing more important to her than this. And so it infuriates her. It absolutely infuriates her when this woman she works with has the audacity to get a boob job. A boob job. You'll remember that's like a huge insecurity for her. She's never been able to afford plastic surgery. So she still has she still has boobs that she doesn't like. And so it just, she cannot she cannot stop thinking about this other woman's breasts. And the way that it infuriates her that this woman is already very attractive and very wealthy, has a lot of the things that she wants out of life, and now also has perfect boobs. How dare she? She wants her to not have nice things. And instead, she would like to have nice things. And so the story, if you'll recall, we read a different book that had a bit of a similar theme by C. Commissar. What was that called? Something about tatas. But in that book, it's about a woman who's stealing boobs. This has a similar premise where she wants to get her own surgery, but can't afford to do it through legal means. So she is resorting to less than legal means to get herself a boob job. So we'll leave it at that. I enjoyed this thoroughly. You're getting into such things that I find really, really interesting. You get into the subject matter of jealousy. Everybody experiences it to a degree, but it can manifest itself so differently. For me, I've never really had that type of jealousy where if somebody had something that I wished I had, If there was a stunning woman and I'm thinking, oh God, I wish I looked like that. Or someone really talented and it's like, oh, I wish I was talented like that. I wish I was rich like that. Like, oh, whatever. I've never in my life thought like, oh, I want them to lose that thing. My jealousy just doesn't manifest that way where I want them to lose it. I just would also like to have it. But for a lot of people, it's like that their jealousy, they almost want that person to lose it more than they want it for themselves. It's like all of that anger and frustration is aimed at that person versus themselves, of their own lacking and not being the best version of themselves. Or maybe they are and they just are unable to achieve certain things and they're bitter about that. But it's like that sense of entitlement of, you don't deserve to be you. I deserve to be you. You don't deserve to be you. It's very presumptuous, right? I also think there's something when you're getting into the specific subject of women being jealous of the beauty of others. As you get older, you realize how much of it is just the luck of the draw. This woman wasted her entire life. She had such an inferiority complex because she was bullied and she was ugly when she was young that she never wanted to feel that way again. And she thought that if she could just be the most beautiful, then nobody would ever be able to make her feel like worthless ever again. And it's like the irony is that she basically made her life worthless. Her life was completely empty aside from her obsession with trying to look perfect. She had nothing of real sustainable value in her life. Sometimes the obsession with beauty isn't even about the beauty itself. Because she, at this point, you figure Pam was attractive. Like, she took very good care of herself, focused very much on trying to look nice, and it still wasn't good enough because there was somebody else more attractive than her. What she wanted wasn't about being beautiful. What she wanted was the power to make other people feel inferior. She doesn't want other people to be able to make her feel inferior, which is fine, which is good. You shouldn't give that kind of power to other people. But instead, she's like, I want that power so I can make other people. If there's any young women listening to this, please listen to me. You could win the lottery and you could spend all of it, every last penny, on trying to make yourself look as good as possible. You could dedicate your entire life to a private chef and a physical trainer and surgery, liposuction, Botox, whatever. You could spend every last penny you have, every ounce of energy you have in making that your top priority. Okay? And every single day for the rest of your life, you could take 5 minutes online and find a woman who was way more attractive than you without putting an ounce of effort in. So what the fuck is it all for? Take good care of yourself. Present yourself in a way that makes you feel good, like you have some self-respect. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about obsession. I am talking about when you prioritize looking good over being good. Just accept you look how you look. Some people are going to like it. Some people aren't. You're never going to achieve an appearance that will protect you from feeling inferior. It's just going to be a matter of who you feel inferior to. It's not going to protect you from criticism. It's not going to protect you from being hurt or rejected. Pretty privilege is a thing. You want to talk about privilege? It is a privilege to be able to blend in with a crowd. Like, people think that they want to stand out, but dude, it's like you think about people who do not have the luxury of blending in, even if they want to. People who have to struggle with just trying to do day-to-day things, but because of things, a disability, a deformity, a disfigurement, there are people who go about their days and do not have the luxury of being able to blend in with the crowd, even when they want to. So keeping things in perspective, if you are able to go to the grocery store or whatever, and people aren't going to stare at you in awe of your beauty, but they also don't stare at you for any negative reasons either, then perhaps that's also a privilege. that you have that you don't acknowledge. Um, that's my rant. Sorry. I really, really liked this a lot. I find this sort of subject very interesting. It really makes me want to read Daniel J. Volpe. It really makes me want to read more of him again soon. And last up, we have our 2024 winner, which is Snow Angels by Lucas Mangum. This is a supernatural story. This is about a group of convicts that were being transported during a snowstorm. Their bus or whatever crashes, and all the convicts end up freezing to death. It's become a bit of an urban legend since then that these convicts will come back during snowstorms and kill people. Like, it's not like a very in-depth, it's just that they froze to death and they're mad about it, so they'll come back and get you. And so this is a story about people from this town realizing the snow angels have come back, and they are giving all sorts of indications and warnings to people that they're in the process of coming back because they need to kill people to get stronger in order to kill other people. So they're warning, so the people that they want to kill, like the people that they're aiming for that are responsible for them having froze to death, those people and their descendants are the ones that they want to target. So they're killing other people that they don't care about, which warns the people that they do want to kill. But they need to do that in order to get strong enough to kill. So they need to kill to be strong enough to kill. But also now these people know that they're coming. You see my issue here. If you were strong enough to kill these other people, then why couldn't you have just, you know? So I'm a little bit perplexed on that point. They're doing things like making things really cold before they kill people. So they'll be like, oh my gosh, I have to go do this thing, and then like the doorknob is freezing cold and burns their hand when they touch it, and then they kill them. We lost power, and then the window froze up, and then they wrote in the window, "We're coming." I don't understand why they're kind of playing their hand up front in such a manner. The convicts didn't need to die. You find out that their deaths could have been prevented, but the people just didn't care because they were just convicts anyway. And that is why they want revenge so badly. This is just a novella, so it's never going to be as well fleshed out as a full-blown novel, right? But I do feel that there's just like a lot of gaps in the question why to this story. I didn't dislike the story. Like, the story is fun. It's not the sort of plot that I'm really going to remember much because it kind of just comes across like a bit of a slasher. They're ghosts, right? They're ghosts, and yet they're just stabbing people largely. They're ghosts, but they're killing people in very human ways. Again, I get a little frustrated with this because what is splatterpunk extreme horror versus just regular horror? It's subjective. I would not have considered this splatterpunk if I would have just read it on my own. I don't think the horror elements in this are extreme. And unlike true crime, the subject matter is not just of such an extremely disturbing nature that it kind of supersedes the lack of gore, if that makes sense. If you've ever seen the TV show Supernatural, which I have not seen the whole thing, but I did watch a few seasons of it when I was younger, this could have been an episode of Supernatural. Like, that's the sort of vibe that this has. The story is fine, but if you're looking for splatterpunk, this isn't the first book that would pop into my head to recommend for this category, so it's a little bit surprising to me that it just, not that it won an award. Again, I'm not criticizing the writing itself at this moment. It does surprise me a little bit that this is considered splatterpunk. This isn't the first time I've been surprised by that, though, so we'll just say it's on the lighter end of the spectrum. The ending confused me. I don't want to spoil it. I guess I'll just say that there is an element of the ending that involves a character kind of playing the role of a middleman, and I don't understand why that was necessary. I don't understand why the middleman was necessary. I don't understand how these events were necessary in order for the ending to happen. I'm just a little bit confused. Maybe I misunderstood. I don't know. I just, why, like, why? I'm confused. It's fine. There's another part where he's like, oh, there's these people, things, whatever, blocking this guy who's trying to drive through his driveway, and they're in his way. And he's like, I'm sick of this. And he tries to get out of his car with a pew-pew. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, if you're willing to shoot them, why don't you just run them over with the car? Why are you getting out of your car with a pew-pew when you're in a car? You could just run them over. Stuff like that, I feel like I'm missing something. I guess I just, reading this, I asked myself the question, why, more than I would have cared to. What I will say, though, is that I was looking at this author, and he has a different book called Saint Sadist that I thought actually sounded really good. So at some point in the future, I don't know when, I think I would like to try again. Okay, so that is all of, or most. Okay, so that is most of the best novella winners of the Splatterpunk Awards since 2018. But yeah, overall, I had fun, and the next video coming out will be the best novel nominees for this year. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and maybe I'll see you the next time around. Bye. The unhealthy relateness. You know what I'm saying. You know.